If you are listening to this, chances are you've sensed that something about the modern approach to manifestation feels fundamental. Well, incomplete. You've maybe tried the journals, you've meticulously crafted the vision boards, recited the daily affirmations, and yet there's this nagging feeling, right?
Yeah, like the results are either too mild, maybe too slow, or just that the whole practice feels a bit, I don't know, soft, too soft for real life.
Exactly. Too soft.
Well, that feeling, according to the huge amount of source material we synthesized for this deep dive, it's completely justified.
Okay.
The central claim here, and this comes from looking at ancient manuscripts, suppressed texts like Gnostic and Hermetic ones, is that the version of manifestation taught so widely today is incomplete.
Right.
It's like a softened, watered down fraction of what was originally a really powerful, almost ancient science. Our sources are arguing that the genuine techniques, the real mechanics of how reality responds to human intention were deliberately erased. Or twisted or suppressed over thousands of years.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately, because that core idea is, well, it's radical.
It is.
The idea that original manifestation wasn't just wishing, but a warrior's act. That flips the script entirely on, everything we think we know.
Completely.
So our mission today is to dig into that, explore these 10 key points the sources lay out, detailing how this power was supposedly hidden.
By empires, by organized religion.
Yeah.
Basically structures wanting to keep people dependent.
Yeah, and we need to get into this shift, moving from just attraction, like pulling things towards you, to this idea of powerful transmission.
Sending commands out.
Exactly, and why intense emotional charge isn't just a feeling, but like the actual currency of reality.
This whole deep dive, it's really about personal sovereignty, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's about looking at the difference between, say, passively asking the universe for something and actively commanding your reality to match your internal state. Understanding why those old power structures saw that kind of self-determination as, frankly, an existential threat.
A threat. Okay, so let's jump right in. Let's set the foundation. So the first claim that really makes this ancient approach stand out is that shift in attitude. Manifestation as a warrior's act, demanding, costly, not just a passive wish. In modern terms, we talk so much about waiting for the universe to deliver. What did these ancient practitioners understand about the sort of required internal posture that we've maybe forgotten?
Well, the fundamental difference is moving from hoping to summoning.
Summoning, okay.
Yeah. The ancient way wasn't gentle. It wasn't about just feeling good. It demanded intense presence, constant pressure, and crucially, personal cost.
Personal cost.
Yeah. The sources we looked at describing mystery schools, older warrior codes, they really emphasize you don't talk lightly about what you want. The energy you put into holding the vision has to match the vision itself. They didn't just visualize quietly. They actively made space for what they wanted. Right. And that space was cleared through action, through sacrifice, and through absolute certainty.
That responsibility element you mentioned, I find that completely transformative.
It is.
It just reverses the whole modern ask and receive idea. The older systems, they weren't about begging or just being optimistic.
Not at all.
Instead, the focus was fiercely internal. Like, practitioners had to concentrate on giving up the parts of themselves, the parts that couldn't actually hold the result they wanted.
That's the absolute core of the warrior's paradox. Manifestation was seen as this profound responsibility.
Right.
So if you were asking for, say, vast wealth, the cost wasn't just putting in the hour. It was sacrificing the undisciplined parts of your character.
Yeah.
The chaotic part, the lazy parts. If you wanted healing, the sacrifice might be your attachment to the identity of being a wounded person. If you wanted to be a leader, you had to instantly give up the luxury of self-doubt.
So it becomes about alignment. If you're asking the system for something big, but internally you're fragile, or you just don't have the capacity to manage the complexity of that outcome.
The alignment's broken. Exactly. It becomes a matter of capacity, not just desire. Precisely. The system, according to these sources, it only delivers what your current internal architecture can actually sustain.
Okay.
So while modern teachings often focus on comfort, making you feel good, the original meaning demanded this fierce, uncompromising alignment. If you don't build the container inside yourself, the psychological and emotional discipline needed well, the request is kind of irrelevant.
It won't land.
The universe, or the system, whatever you want to call it, it won't fulfill a request that would basically destroy the requester. It protects the system.
Wow. That immediately shifts the conversation, doesn't it? It goes from, why hasn't the universe delivered my vision board, to something much tougher.
Like, have I actually sacrificed the internal habits, the comforts, the patterns that are preventing me from being able to carry this outcome?
Yeah, that's a very different question.
And that mindset, that focus on internal architecture, leads us right into the second major distortion the sources point out.
Which is?
The popular idea that the mind is just a magnet that attracts.
Yes. The law of attraction is commonly taught. The sources call this a major brain.
We're often told, positive thinking just pulls good things.
Yeah.
But the original concept seems much more proactive, more demanding.
So how did they...
Your mind isn't a passive magnet. It's a broadcast tower.
Okay, a broadcast tower.
It doesn't just sit there waiting to pull things in. It transmits. It sends out command.
That changes the whole locus power then.
Completely. You're not waiting for outcomes to sort of fall from the sky. You are constantly sending out instructions like lines of code that are literally building the parameters of your experience.
You're programming the simulation.
In effect, yes. You're programming the simulation that generates your life.
That's a powerful metaphor. Programming the simulation. So every repeated thought, especially if it's infused with real emotional certainty, that's not just internal chatter.
No, it's a broadcast signal, a signal the environment must respond. That's the claim.
So the whole mechanism hinges on that.
That's the idea. Therefore, the quality of your life doesn't really depend on how much you want something. It depends on the clarity, the strengths, the consistency of the instructions you're sending out all the time.
Okay.
If your transmission is confused, if it's vague or weak, maybe your internal narrative jumps all over the place, then your external results are going to mirror that chaos. It has to.
And concerns.
But if the signal is strong, unwavering, steady, the environment is basically compelled to match those instructions line by line. The whole focus shifts from hoping you'll receive something good to making damn sure you're sending a high-quality, powerful transmission.
And if we are constantly broadcasting these instructions, we probably need some kind of instruction manual, right, to make sure we're using the right code.
Exactly.
Which brings us to that incredibly profound ancient maxim as above, so below.
Mm-hmm. And today, that phrase often gets treated like, poetry or some kind of vague mysticism.
Yeah, you see it on posters.
Right. But the source material, especially from Hermetic traditions, is really insistent. It was never poetry. It was an instructional code, a fundamental law of feedback.
So what does it instruct?
It means what you observe outside your external reality, the below, is a precise, literal reflection of what is being repeated inside your mind, inside your emotional structure. That's the above.
That brings that responsibility element right back, full circle.
It does.
If my inner world, my above, is full of conflict or fear or maybe just competing desires pulling me in different directions,
then the below your external experience must, by this law, echo that inner chaos. It has no choice.
Because the blueprint always comes first.
The blueprint always comes first. This is absolutely core to the warrior's path. You're either diligently maintaining the blueprint of the future you desire, or you're just carelessly letting the default programming, which is often chaos, run the show. And when you impress your thoughts with that strong emotional charge we talked, you're not just feeling something intensely. You are actively carving new instruction into the template that shapes your experience.
So every single emotionally charged reaction, frustration, joy, certainty, panic, if I repeat,
it becomes another line of code, updating the version of reality you're literally about to step into. This is why things like mental discipline were prized so highly in these traditions.
Not for moral reason.
Not primarily for morality, no. For operational necessity. You had to control the blueprint.
It sounds like the highest form of self-discipline then is just managing that internal narrative, knowing with certainty that the environment is basically legally bound to replicate.
That's the essence of it, yes. Yeah. Managing the broadcast.
Okay, so if the mind is our broadcast tower and our internal narrative is the code we're sending, we need fuel, right? Fuel for that transmission to actually reach its target and have an impact.
Absolutely.
Which leads us really naturally to the source's fierce assertion about emotion, that emotion is the true currency of reality.
Mm-hmm.
And this feels like where the ancient practice really drastically departs from the more gentle, sometimes people call it light and fluffy modern method.
That's exactly right. Reality, as it's described in these older texts, it just doesn't seem to respond much to casual thought or vague intention or shallow daydreams.
No.
It responds almost exclusively to intense emotional charge. Emotion isn't just a side effect of manifestation. It's the absolute non-negotiable fuel. It's what makes the engine of change actually fire up.
So these ancient practitioners, they weren't relying on just logic or positive self-talk like we understand it today.
It seems not in the same way. They were actively harnessing raw, powerful feelings.
Yeah.
The sources mention using states like intense pain, deep hunger, burning passion, even extreme grief.
Grief, really?
Yeah, using those raw states to generate the necessary power, the voltage, if you will.
But why the focus on intensity rather than just, feeling good? Isn't positive emotion better?
Well, it's about the force. Intensity is required to actually override the existing reality program. Think of it like a computer's operating system.
Yeah.
If you want to install a powerful new OS, you can't just gently tap the install button maybe once or twice.
Right.
You need overwhelming energy, that emotional combustion, to displace the old code and force the new blueprint into effect.
Ah, okay. So mild feelings get mild results?
A mild desire, you get mild, slow results, maybe nothing noticeable, but deep certainty, passionate devotion, or even, yes, the intense conviction that can come from deep grief or righteous anger. That kind of charge causes rapid, powerful shifts.
Why?
Because the system, it responds to force, not just calm optimism. Emotional combustion was their tool. It replaced our modern reliance on often quite weak visual hope, like just sticking pictures on a board.
So the strength of that emotional charge dictates the speed, the clarity of the outcome.
Precisely. A weak signal just gets lost in the background noise of the world, right? But a powerful, emotionally charged signal, it cuts through everything.
Which brings us to another really radical point, these sources.
Which is?
You're not simply asking the universe. You're not requesting. You are forcing a render.
Forcing a render. Okay, what does that mean exactly?
This concept, this is the critical distinction. It might be why so many people feel like the moderns fails. They're still asking. They're requesting outcome.
Right, like putting in an order.
Yeah, instead of installing the new reality themselves. The universe in this model isn't a cosmic waiter taking your order.
Well,
no, it's an echo chamber. It instantly mirrors the signal of your internal state, whatever you're broadcasting now.
And that signal, as we've been saying, isn't just silent thoughts. It's broadcast through embodiment.
Yes. Your actions, your reactions, your physical posture, your tone of voice, even your automatic daily habit, that entire packet, that is the signal.
And that's what gets printed back. That's what gets printed back into your life. The hidden teachers, the ones described in these texts, they never told their followers, just ask and wait patiently.
No. What did they teach?
They trained them to become the version of themselves that already matches the result. You don't request it, you render it. You operate, you speak, you live in such a definitive, certain way that the outcome becomes, well, mathematically, physically, almost impossible not to happen.
Because the system has to match the signal.
Yes, the internal system generating your reality, it only listens to certainty. It ignores doubt completely, and it reads your embodiment, your action, not just your fleeting intentions or wishes.
So going back to your examples, if you want to be a top athlete, you don't just put a picture of a trophy on your wall and hope.
No. You start carrying yourself differently. You embody the fatigue, the discipline, the certainty, the nutritional precision of a champ starting today, now.
That is the render.
Exactly. The system isn't scanning your hopeful wish list. It's scanning your current internal operational state. You're programming now.
And the moment that internal state completely aligns with the desired outcome.
The external world has no choice. It has to shift to match it. That's the claim.
And speaking of shifting, this perspective seems to completely dismantle one of our most ingrained beliefs, the idea that we have to wait.
Yes.
The sources make this radical claim that time is essentially a lie in this context, that manifestation is fundamentally nonlinear. We're constantly taught that achieving anything worthwhile takes time, you have to. But this ancient understanding seems to just reject that linear waiting game completely.
It does. And this is a really powerful paradigm-shifting idea. It connects directly to some, quantum interpretations you sometimes find hinted at in Hermetic texts and other esoteric traditions.
Oh, so?
The sources stated pretty clearly, the thing you want, it isn't some distant object that needs to travel across a gap of weeks or months to get to you.
No. Where is it then?
It already exists right now. But it exists on a different version of the time, a different frequency, or maybe think of it as a different layer of reality than the one you're currently occupying.
Okay, like parallel tracks.
Sort of. So if the outcome already exists on a parallel track, the job isn't patience. It's not waiting. It's a literal shift, a shift in your frequency, your internal physics to jump tracks.
Jump tracks.
Ancient wisdom often described time not as a single straight road into the future, but more like a stack of potential reality, layers, all existing simultaneously.
Wow.
And accessing a new layer, the reality where your desired result is already realized, that's achieved through a profound full spectrum change in your broadcast frequency, your internal state.
So if the result hasn't shown up yet, it's not because I'm waiting for the future to arrive.
It's because your internal system is still broadcasting the old signal, the signal that corresponds to the old layer, the old reality.
And the source claims that when you shift that signal, not slowly, not gradually, with that warrior's certainty,
you get instant access to the result.
Instant.
Not later. Now. That's the claim.
Yeah.
It's a total rejection of the necessity of delay.
So the waiting period we experience.
It's Simply the duration it takes you to fully change the frequency of your internal broadcast. The only thing separating you from the desired outcome is the inertia, the habit of your current familiar frequency.
And once you achieve that internal alignment, the conviction, the emotional charge, the embodiment, the state that matches the layer where the result already exists,
the system must, according to this view, instantaneously collapse the old reality and render the new one. The weight is only internal.
Okay, achieving that level of, instantaneous full frequency shift, the ancient practitioners couldn't have just been guessing, right? They must have used specific, maybe highly trained internal tools.
That seems logical, yes.
Which brings us to the physical interface described as tech, the pineal described as...
Ah, yes, the third eye. This is a fascinating meeting point between sort of spiritual understanding and physical biology.
Right.
Mystics, Gnostics, Egyptian priests, even figures like the Pythagoreans, they consistently viewed the pineal gland not just as, a small gland in the brain, but as the central control room, the switchboard for the body's reality-generating capacity.
The switchboard, how was it believed to actually function in this context of commanding reality?
It was seen as the precise nexus point, the spot where thought energy, focused intention, where they fused together into a palpable directive force.
Okay.
It was considered the center from which reality could be programmed from within, the critical point for sending out those coherent commands we've been discussing.
So it wasn't seen as magic, but more like biology.
More like optimizing the signal. If the pineal gland was the transmitter, then its health, its clarity, its level of activation determined the wattage of your broadcast signal, how strong and clear it was.
And if the stakes were that high, the ability to literally render reality, what kind of training was involved, how did they activate the switchboard?
Well, the training described sounds intense, often highly restrictive. It involved things like profound silence, specific visualization practices, fasting, sometimes elaborate rituals, all designed to heighten internal focus and sensitivity.
The goal being
to drastically enhance signal strength. And the sources often note the kind of tragic irony here.
Which is?
That due to modern life, chronic stress, constant noise pollution, poor diets often high in fluoride and processed foods, and just a general lack of inner discipline or focus, this vital tool, the pineal gland, seems to have lost much of its sensitivity for many people. It's become, as some texts put it, covered in fog or even physically calcified.
So the ability to send that clear, strong message isn't gone, but it might be physically impaired, blocked by the static of modern living.
That's exactly the suggestion. Ancient teachings insisted this was the literal control room. So if your signal is faint or confused or intermittent, the system just doesn't pick it up clearly. Doesn't matter how much you wish it would.
So the work for someone today wanting to explore this would be
clearing that fog through practices like meditation, silence, maybe dietary changes, deep internal focus, restoring that powerful unblocked connection needed for immediate rendering.
Okay, now let's move from that internal switchboard to maybe the external language of reality. The sources argue that symbols, things like sacred geometry, sigils, runes, weren't just art. They were acts.
Yes, this takes the warrior's act sort of outside the body and into the very architecture of the external world.
How so?
Sacred geometry, runes, even Egyptian hieroglyphs. The claim is these were never just decoration or aesthetic. They were understood as a highly compressed language.
A language.
Yes, a way to store immense amounts of energy, specific meaning, complex intention, all within a single, often simple form. Older civilizations apparently utilized these with the absolute conviction that form itself could carry force.
So not just pretty shapes to look at. How did they function as interface universe?
Well, the idea is that when these symbols were drawn, or placed intentionally, or focused upon, with intense emotional charge and repetition, they acted almost like passwords. Passwords to hidden functions within the environment, within the fabric of reality itself. The sources suggest that many symbols we still recognize today, common geometric shapes, religious icons, etc., were originally powerful blueprints for change.
Meant to be active.
Exactly. Activated through ritual, concentration, focused intent, not just passively admired or worn as jewelry or printed on t-shirts.
That suggests that those who really understood the symbol as code, they weren't just engaging in vague mysticism, they were actively trying to manipulate the underlying architecture of their reality.
Like inserting a USB drive loaded with specific instructions directly into the system.
Wow.
That they could use precise shape and line combined with focused intention and emotional energy to achieve results that seem to bypass the normal linear limitations of the physical world.
So they believed they could use these symbols to...
The texts talk about things like collapsing timeline, unlocking specific energetic shifts, rapidly reprogramming experience without needing all the long, logical, step-by-step actions we usually assume are necessary.
Using geometric shortcuts to reality rendering?
That's a good way to put it, yes.
Okay, this entire system we've been mapping out, personal sovereign, instant rendering based on internal state, the power of intense emotion, these specific internal and external, it all sounds profoundly empowering.
It does.
Which begs the really big question. If this was known, if this warrior's path was understood, why did it seemingly disappear from public view? Why isn't this common knowledge? Which brings us to maybe the most dramatic claim in the sources, the role of empires and organized religion in actively suppressing this truth.
And the answer, according to these texts, is terrifyingly simple.
What is it?
Independence is the enemy of centralized power. Always has been. Think about it. Ancient manuscripts, particularly things like the Gnostic Gospels or Hermetic teaching, got suppressed. They described a direct, unmediated system of interaction with reality.
Right, no middleman needed.
Exact. This gave the individual direct access to power. You didn't need a priest or a king or a political party or any other authority figure to interpret reality for you or act as your
And that level of direct individual freedom, that's the ultimate threat to any kind of structured hierarchical authority, isn't it?
It's an existential threat, absolutely. Yeah. Kings, empires, and yes, critically organized religion. Their power often depends on people feeling fear, being predictable. If every single person possesses the working knowledge that their internal broadcast, their state of being, is directly shaping their external reality, well, they immediately stop needing the very systems that claim to manage reality for them.
Systems built on obedience and intermediary figures.
Exact. Systems that need you to believe the power lies outside yourself.
So this knowledge wasn't just passively lost over time. The sources claim there was an active, deliberate, concerted effort over centuries.
That's the argument. Think of historical events like the burning of the Library of Alexandria, the systematic suppression of Gnostic texts declared heretical, the way Hermetic ideas were driven underground. The sources interpret these not just as political or theological disputes, but as part of a long campaign to delete, twist, and suppress anything that taught this direct access to personal power.
Wow. So they didn't just hide.
No, they systematically replaced it. They substituted this demanding, active system of the warrior, the one requiring intense self-responsibility.
With what?
With essentially watered-down stories, doctrines and narratives that were explicitly designed to make the masses feel, to make them doubtful of their own power, to keep them quiet and looking outward for salvation or permission.
The entire structure was designed to ensure people deferred
and believed that true power resided somewhere else, with the gods, the state, the priests, the experts, anywhere but within their own personal domain. This ensured compliance, predictability, control.
That huge structural effort to manage and control individual potential. That leads right into the final claim, doesn't it?
It does.
That doubt, that feeling we all know so well, was actually designed to keep you small. This suggests that self-doubt isn't just some natural human insecurity we're born with.
The source material is very stark, very direct on this point. Doubt, they argue, didn't just organically spring up inside your psyche.
No.
It was placed there, like a program, a calculated piece of code inserted by the systems and stories we've been talking about, and its purpose, to prevent you from ever truly testing the limits of your own sovereign power.
So doubt itself becomes a mechanism of social control.
Precisely. Being trained, generation after generation, to perpetually second-guess your instinct, to wait for external validation, for permission from others, to defer all your important judgments to authority figures. All of that acts as a continuous process. It chips away constantly at the direct, unmediated connection you naturally have with possibility, with your own power.
It sounds like the ultimate control mechanism, really.
It is. This structure was meticulously designed, the sources claim, to keep populations managed, predictable, and fundamentally afraid of stepping outside the established line. If you operate under the core belief that you must be validated by the outside world first, you will always wait for permission to be powerful.
And psychologically, or maybe even energetically, doubt acts like dense static, right on top of your broadcast tower.
That's a perfect analogy. The power is still there. The ability to command to render is still functional underneath, but the interference, the doubt probe, makes it almost impossible to send out a clear, coherent, powerful signal needed for rendering a new reality.
So how do you overcome that if it's programmed in?
Well, the reversal of this programming is seen as the final crucial act of the warrior's path. Removing doubt isn't just a feel-good psychological trick. It's described as a necessary, fierce reversal of centuries of societal conditioning.
How do you do it?
The moment you act despite the programmed doubt, the moment you move forward with absolute certainty, without needing external proof first, that's when you start rebuilding that original, powerful, direct connection.
Acting without proof.
Yeah. Those systems that taught hesitation, external dependence, waiting for permission, they were simply ensuring, perhaps unconsciously in many cases, but structurally effective nonetheless, that you never discovered the limitless capability that, according to these ancient traditions, resides within you. #tag outro.
So let's try and tie this entire deep dive back together. back to this concept of the warrior's path. We fundamentally shifted the idea of manifestation, haven't we? From a passive, hopeful wish, waiting for the universe to maybe drop some gifts when it feels like it, to an active, intensely demanding internal command.
Yes, a system that requires the certainty of embodiment, that uses intense emotional force as its actual fuel.
And demands total commitment to broadcasting your desired outcome through everything, your actions, your reactions, your habits, your very posture.
And the key takeaway really is the force required. The warrior's path isn't about just ignoring difficulties or pretending everything's fine while internally you're resisting or feeling weak.
Well,
it's about matching the force of what you want, the intensity, the clarity, the sheer size of the ask with the force you are willing and able to output. Mentally, emotionally, physically, all aligned.
You stop being a passive supplicant asking the system for favors.
And you start being the one who renders reality through your own unwavering, powerful internal signal.
Okay. So if our minds truly act as a broadcast tower, sending out these definitive commands to the system of our experience, and if our emotions are the necessary fuel determining the speed and the clarity of that transmission, then the provocative thought, maybe, for you, the listener, to consider is this. What single command are you broadcasting mostly right now? Not just in your thoughts, but through the cumulative frequency of your daily habit, your baseline emotional state, your physical posture, your deepest unspoken. Because according to these suppressed ancient teachings, that command, that's the precise blueprint you are currently actively rendering right now.